Östersund is an urban area in Jämtland in the middle of Sweden. It is the seat of Östersund Municipality and the capital of Jämtland County. Östersund is located at the shores of Sweden's fifth largest lake, Storsjön, opposite the island Frösön, and is the only city in Jämtland. Östersund is the region's cultural and economical center and by tradition a city of trade and commerce. Östersund had one of the most extensive garrisons in Sweden prior to its closure in the early 21st century. The city is the Mid-Sweden University's largest campus site with approximately 7,000 students. With a total population of 44,327, Östersund is the 24th most populous city in Sweden, the 46th most populous city in Scandinavia, and by far the largest inland city in northern Sweden. The city was the only Swedish city founded and chartered in the 18th century. Östersund was founded in order to create a trade monopoly over Jämtland, whose inhabitants' lucrative trade annoyed the Swedish crown. The intention was to persuade the local farmers to deliver merchandise to middlemen in Östersund, but the population opposed this economic philosophy, and Östersund long remained small. It took until the end of the 19th century for Östersund to truly become a city. After the arrival of the railroad and the economic liberalization of that time, Östersund is situated in inland Scandinavia and connected to Sundsvall in the east on the Swedish coast, and Trondheim in the west at the shores of the Norwegian Sea. Östersund is located in the middle of Scandinavia, in the middle of Sweden, in the middle of Jämtland County and in the middle of Östersund Municipality. As the most centrally located city in Sweden, the city credits itself as the center of Sweden. Östersund is marketed as Vinterstaden, Winter City. Winter City as a project is run by the municipality together with city enterprises. Östersund has had a long history as a center of outdoor activities with a modern cross-country ski stadium and an actual piste in the city itself. Östersund has also hosted several world championships in various sports such as biathlon, speed skating and ski orienteering, along with Swedish national championships in cross-country skiing and snowcross. The city has been the applicant city of Sweden for several Winter Olympic Games but has yet to host one. The precursor to the Winter Olympic Games, the Nordic Games, were however held at several occasions in the city due to lack of snow in Stockholm. Geography. Östersund is the only city in the province and it is located on the shore of the fifth largest lake in Sweden, Storsjön. The area surrounding this lake is commonly referred to as Storsjöbygden, and this area has been described as the world's northernmost located, genuine agricultural society in the inland with continental climate. The city sprawls along the eastern slopes of Lake Storsjön, and most of the city and the city core itself is located on the mainland. Facing the non-mainland part of the city, the island of Frösön, which for a very long time was the actual center of Jämtland. Today, a sizable part of the city's population live on the slopes of the island that face the city center. Östersund is a bi-municipal town because a minor part of it with roughly 400 inhabitants is actually situated in Krok municipality. The city spans across Östersund and the city was named after this strait. Östersund can be directly translated from Swedish to English as East Sound. The name of the strait derives from an older Jämtish name now present in the form Östersand. Climate. Östersund has a subarctic climate and is located in the far north of the North Temperate Climate Zone. The cold Arctic winds that occasionally find the way to the city are called Nordvestan or Kalvestan locally. However, the winter climate is much warmer than most locations at similar latitudes. This is due to the Gulf Stream and the many passages in the mountain range, bringing warmer Atlantic winds to the city during winters. This somewhat maritime character also makes the summers in the city rather cool, in comparison to other towns in inland Scandinavia, which all have a more continental climate with cold winters and warm summers. Though Östersund is in fact affected by the Gulf Stream, it lacks the high frequency of rain following the currents. This is due to the Scandinavian mountain range acting as a natural barrier, receiving most of the precipitation, giving Östersund and the surrounding area a rain deficit. Another issue that has to be taken into account is the higher elevation of Östersund compared to the weather stations in Jämtland farther east. For example, Sollefteå of similar latitude 130 kilometers to its east but closer to sea level, albeit inland, has almost 3 degrees warmer July days. Östersund has a high exposition of sunlight and was the most sunny city in Sweden in the summer of 2007 with 654 hours of sun. However, in comparison to East Coast locations, sunshine is relatively low. Cityscape. Östersund was laid out with roads spanning from north to south, countered by several alleys from east to west, which is why an alley in Östersund is synonymous with a road leading down towards Storsjön. For the inner city one may gaze upon Storsjön, Frösön and the Jämtland region with snow-clad mountains. This was made possible due to the topography and the grid plan, the regularity in Östersund's road system and the slanting alleys leading from higher altitudes down towards Storsjön have created the windows to the west characteristic and unique to Östersund as a city. The alleys, often seen as rather steep, have created the illusion that the houses in the city core are climbing to higher grounds. These houses were conformed upon their construction to fit with the slopes. The first city plan of Östersund was made with several large segments in the core being reserved as green areas. Östersund was thus planned as a green city, and special lots, e.g., Kruidgårdstomter, Spice Garden lots, were created along with construction lots. These lots shifted with a construction lot alternating with a Spice Garden lot. The garden lots are no longer existent since they too have been constructed upon. Many of the fences that separated each lot from another with trees and verdure were left intact. The large green areas are still present, with parks such as Kirkparken, Österangsparken and Badhusparken being the most prominent. Badhusparken was once the location of a large bathhouse, though it was torn down in 1881 when the railway was constructed. A new larger two-story pompous bathhouse was later built on poles a few meters from the shore, enabling the population to bathe in the waters of Storsjön during summers. This house was also torn down when a new bathhouse with heated water was founded in 1938. When Östersund started to grow as a city in the late 19th century, the houses consisted predominantly of wood, though stone had become popular in the central parts. These houses were heavily characterized by Neo-Gothicism and Neo-Renaissance. A very common feature of these houses were towers, some even resembling those on old castles like the one on Hotel Grand at the main square. In the early 20th century a new age had come, and in the main road, Brostgaten, the new age came fiercely. The wooden houses were replaced by stone buildings, because a city's well-being was measured in how many stone buildings it had. At the same time, military barracks were constructed in connection to the older settlement. Jugendstil became popular too as an addition to the national romantic style architecture. In the 1930s, the functionalistic style made itself apparent in Östersund's outskirts, which were growing. In the 1940s, the city was made more car-friendly, and the city was first and foremost planned for cars. Later the sanitarian issues was brought up. which resulted in the construction of a sewage treatment works, and the wastewater was no longer flushed directly into Storsjön. Östersund was also affected by the Million Programme, though to a lesser extent than other cities. During the same period, older buildings such as Hotel Grand, Selfangilset, Flygskolan and Vastra Station were torn down. The local media described it all as e.g. demolishing madness. When the Good Templar House was threatened in order to widen Radhusgatan, the city's inhabitants had had enough and the building was saved. The buildings along Storgatan, with entire segments intact since the 1880s, are considered one of the best preserved city settlements in Sweden. The wooden facades are rich with details and the house are relatively low, short and slim. A great amount of work was put down on creating a balance between details and entirety. Parallel with Storgatan lies Prästgatan, the Priest Road, Östersund's main shopping street. The buildings between the two roads are often connected and the roads create small rooms mostly inaccessible for keen winds. These so-called rooms also stimulate the social life on the streets. Stortorget, the main town square in central Östersund, is one of 6 closed squares built in Sweden, the others being the ones in Uppsala, Karlstad, Vimmerby, Piteå and Haparanda. It was created through indentation in 4 different blocks to deliberately create an open-air room with openings to every direction, a style deriving from how cities were planned during the Renaissance. However, the town square lost its original shape when it was opened up and expanded towards the lake. Stortorget has long been the city's main marketplace and core. It is also here that the 1,000-year-old market Gregory Market is held each year in March. The city festival Storsjön has Stortorget as its main center. Districts and housing estates. Before Östersund was established, the population in the area was very scarce. In Odensala and Torvalla older settlements existed. The name Odensala can be derived from the Viking Age and the halls of Odin. These 2 villages were later incorporated into Östersund and are today 2 major urban districts. Besides them, the urban districts of Odenskog, Odensvik, Odensland, Karlsland, Eriksland, Lundvik, Lillånch and Soda, along with the new district Stadsdal Norr, are found on the mainland. On Frösön, recently included into the city of the 3 urban districts Hornsberg, Mjäl and Valla. The central parts of Östersund are a part of the urban district Staden, the city, which has become synonymous with Östersund for many people living in the nearby villages and towns. As Östersund is the only city in the area and nearest city for many, it is common to call it Stan, though the dative form SDAA has increasingly grown unusual. The residents of Östersund are referred to as Östersunder, though local ruralists call them Stadsbon towners and Stadsbo towner in singular. Landmarks. The most well-known landmark of Östersund is the National Romantic City Hall. It is 51 meters tall and contains 136 rooms. It is the greatest constructional symbol of the national romantic architecture in Östersund. The city hall looks almost like a fortress and affiliates especially to the local art of Jämtland. The bell tower is of typical Jämtish design shaped like an onion. The local sculptor Olaf Ahlberg made most of the sculpture details and the ornaments are made from Jämtish limestone. Franz Bertil Wahlberg's City Hall was seen by contemporary colleagues as the best of modern Swedish architecture. The main part of the building is accentuated by a grand tower and a monumental stairway. It is accompanied by only one wing, the north wing, as the second, south wing, was torn down in the 1970s. A recently built landmark is Arctura, named after Jämtland's provincial star Arcturus, a large hot water accumulator tank. Due to its appearance it is referred to as Termosen. At night the 65-meter building is illuminated with various lights like sunrise and the aurora borealis. The large church is a monumental feature in Östersund's cityscape. It is a basilica made of bricks with clear distinguished aisle. The choir is three-sided and the large steeple is facing the west. Storsjön and the fells of Överkin. History. Lake Storsjöns shores have long been inhabited, though the area where Östersund is situated was for a very long time Frösön's link to the east mainland. Frösön, the island of the Norse god Frey, was originally the center of the region, and it was here the only inland Scandinavian hill fort. Mjölborgen was built around 300 AD. The ancient Scandinavian thing Jämtland was held on this island. The christening of Jämtland began here, and it was here the world's northernmost raised runestone, Frösön runestone, was risen. Plans regarding the foundation of a Swedish city or coping in Jämtland existed among governmental officials already after the previously Norwegian province was ceded from Denmark-Norway in 1645. Queen Christina demanded the establishment of a sconce on Andersen shortly after the province became Swedish. This sconce would, together with Frösön sconce, secure the Swedish control over Jämtland. Christina's intention was to locate the Jäms city within this fortification. In order to construct the sconce, the local inhabitants were coerced into forced labor 1651, but after protests and lack of capital the project was ended in 1654. In 1758, the plans were brought back up through an initiative from the chief financial officer Per Schisler, and the proposition did however initiate a new debate whether or not a city was to be established in Jämtland. In order to counteract the trading and faring traditions of Jämtland's farmers, several other attempts at construction had previously been taken and deemed unsatisfactory. Östersund was founded and given its charter by monarch Gustav III of Sweden the 23rd of October in 1786. Shortly after, the outskirt of the Odensala farmers' lands were bought for the purpose. Several other places had been suggested, like Usa, the then largest settlement in Jämtland, along with Krockum, Sweden.It outside of Brunflo. Frösön was also a candidate, but the lot fell on Östersund, as it was deemed most favorable. The only thing actually located in the area at the time was the main road and the bridge to Frösön. Östersund was upon foundation freed from taxes during a 20-year time span and completely liberated from trade regulations and guild order. In other remote locations of the Nordic region, similar cities were founded, like Reykjavik on Iceland the very same year, Tromsø in northern Norway, and Tampere and Kuopio in the Finnish inland. Östersund is however the only city in present-day Sweden to have been founded in the 18th century. Just like any other city founded by state officials miles away, the city developed extremely poorly and had to struggle in its infancy. The state tried to pursue the Jämtish traders on Frösön to migrate to the new city, but they had no intentions of leaving such a rich parish with fertile soils. Frösön consisted of in favor of the swamp and marshes across the strait. During its first 50 years the city's population only grew, with 8 people per year. The city did become the capital of the newly founded county consisting of the provinces Jämtland and Härjedalen in 1810, meaning that a county residence was built and a county administrative board was located to the city, though Östersund remained as a de facto farmer village with less than 400 inhabitants in 1820. An upswing occurred in the 1850s, as trade was liberalized and the logging process developed. It took until the construction of the railroad in 1879 before Östersund became a real city and actually gained the status as Jämtland center, at Frösön's expense, thanks to the farmer chieftain Nils last night as the railroad came to pass through the city itself instead of outside it, as planned. The railway from coast to coast across the then union between Sweden and Norway was finished 1882, connecting Östersund closer to Trondheim and Sundsvall. Östersund then came to grow faster than any other Swedish city. After 10 years it had passed 20 Swedish cities in population. The city attracted immigrants, a slight majority from the Jämtish countryside, though still with a high number of settlers from southern Sweden. While Östersund was in its most intense state of growth, popular movements emerged among the inhabitants. In Jämtland and Härjedalen, the free-minded Good Templar movement came to dominate completely. In 1883, 700 of the city's total population of 3,000 were organized Good Templars. The greatest symbol of the movement's grandeur was the Order House constructed 1885 in the city, Östersund's Good Templars Ordenshuset. When one of the most prominent leaders, Joseph Malins, visited the city, he announced that it was the world's largest order house. Many of the leading people behind the popular movements in Östersund saw industrialization as a significant threat towards the native districts and the old village and farmer community. The work from the movements made the city and its center-right governance extremely rejective towards industries. Instead, they wanted to portray Östersund as a center of outdoor activities, culture, education and tourism. Industries were not allowed to threaten the good environment and the social history traditions. In 1917, when the Great War was fought on the continent and with the February Revolution in Russia, starting the Russian Revolution also affected Östersund. Rationing led to lack of supplies and a revolution was feared. Some of the citizens, primarily soldiers, went on hunger strikes, and at the 1st of May that year 4,000 demonstrators gathered in front of the city hall demanding lower prices on milk and wood. The year after, the Spanish flu spread like wildfire across the world. The city doctor in Östersund noted that Östersund ought without objection have been more haunted by the flu than any other Swedish city, which is why Östersund was referred to by locals as Spanska sjukans huvudstad, capital of the Spanish flu. Despite the Great Depression and several crises resulting in a very high unemployment rate, Östersund continued to grow in the interwar period. The municipal community Östersund was incorporated into Östersund in 1918. The business world remained largely unaffected, and Östersund continued being one of the least industrialized cities in Sweden. Instead, Östersund continued to focus on wholesale trade and became a center of this in northern and north-central Sweden. The city's central position was strengthened when Inlandsbanan was constructed through Jämtland from the north to the south. During the interwar period, the car and a bus became common. The first scheduled bus route was created in the 1920s between Östersund and the nearby town of Brunflo. In the next decade, well over 40 bus routes were functioning in Östersund. The dairy was located west of the bus square Gustav III's Torg, at the shopping mall Karnin's current whereabout. This square naturally became a central part of the city. Östersund continued to grow after the Second World War. Lundvik was incorporated into the city in 1954, and Östersund was just like the rest of Jämtland affected by the Renmarkna model, though not in the same way. The Swedish Keynesian politic was launched in order to improve the mobility of the labor force. Jämtland was struck hard by this when the people moved from the countryside to cities, from inland to coast, and from the north to the south. As an urban area, Östersund was affected by the Million Programme, and urban districts like Korfaltet were created. The negative view towards industries were changed when the Social Democrats came to power for the first time in the city's history in 1952. Industries were enticed to Östersund through the national localization politic, and industrial areas were created in Ödenskog and Lundvik. The development was, and, as already mentioned, as good in the rest of Jämtland as it was in Östersund, and as a counteract towards the governmental politic, the Republic of Jämtland was established in 1963. Östersund became the Republic's capital and the home to the Freedom Festival Storsjön. Östersund continued to grow, and in 1970 Frösön was made part of Östersund. In the year of 1971 a major reform occurred in Sweden, creating large municipalities, replacing all the older institutions, and the new large municipality was named after the city. Just like in the rest of Sweden, the public sector greatly expanded at this time. In 1960, the public sector of Sweden constituted about 30% of Sweden's total gross domestic product. In the middle of the 1980s, the number had grown to 65%. At the time it was here the jobs were, in the county board, the state, and in the new municipality. The main reason for the large expansion were the expanded transfer payment to the households that occurred, along with growing interest and public consummation. Everything was founded by large tax raises. The entire 1970s was an expansive period. Besides the new industrial complex, the Frösön Bridge was constructed, a new police house, Zkuppelen, Storsjön, Folkets hus, urban district churches, malls, etc. The county administration board and the hospital expanded, and large housing estates were constructed in Korfaltet, Lundvik and Odensala. The city tried to acquire a humanistic college of higher learning on Frösön already in the 1940s. A large tension existed between the cities in Norrland, and Umeå left the struggle victorious 1962. Östersund, however, required a social college of higher learning in 1971. Östersund is since 2005 one of the main campus sites of the Mid-Sweden University. A number of governmental offices have also been located to the city in recent years. Garrison town. Östersund became a garrison town when the Norrland Artillery Regiment A4 was founded in the city 1892, followed by the upgrading of Jämtlands Folkjagarke to Jämtlands Folkjagarregiment I-23. This was done with the growing fear of a Russian assault, whereas Jämtland, Trøndelag and Norrbotten became the most prioritized defense regions. The dissolution of the Union Sweden-Norway contributed with enhancing Östersund as a military city, strengthening its presence. The Field Ranger Regiment I-5 was located in the city 1910, and the Jämtland Air Force Wing F4 came to Frösön 1926. Östersund's importance as a garrison town grew when the city was connected to the Boden fortress, following the construction of Inlandsbanan. After the fall of the Iron Curtain, the destruction of the Berlin Wall in 1989 and the dissolution of the USSR in 1991, Sweden had lost its national threat, and the demand for a strong defense organization was deemed unnecessary. The issue was debated throughout the 1990s, and the final decision came in 2004, where all military presence in Östersund was ended. Upon delivering the message, the Swedish Minister for Defense Leni Björklund was publicly booed by the city's inhabitants. The ending of Östersund's status as a garrison town has, however, created a larger enthusiasm regarding the city's future, as the private sector has grown larger and more companies have been established, much of which is due to the financial compensation the state offered. The older areas reserved for military activities have been opened up, and 2 more urban districts were made available.